Oh, hello. Wow, looks like I'm on. All right, well, hi, everybody. I think half of the audience actually works here, but well, I hope you all enjoyed today's mobile sessions. We had some great mobile sessions today from a variety of people, and I know even I learned something, and I work here for crying out loud. So, my name's Jim Borden, and I head up the .NET and Xamarin development, and now the Unity development at Couchbase. And I'm going to talk to you today about building a game with Unity and Couchbase Mobile. So that's BORRR, three R's, DEN. It's my Twitter handle, and basically everything on the internet about me, but don't stalk me, please. Twitter's okay, but don't go looking for me. All right. So here's what we're going to talk about today. And first of all, looks like there's a few more people coming in, but is there anyone here that hasn't been to any of the Couchbase mobile sessions today? One person? All right. One person is enough. So we're going to have a brief review of what Couchbase Mobile actually is before I get into the actual talk. And this will be a repeat and summary of the things that most of you saw today, so bear with me for just like 2 or 3 minutes. So what is Couchbase Mobile? Well, about a year ago, Couchbase Lite and Sync Gateway came out, and then Couchbase became the most complete NoSQL solution for applications, and now with Unity release for games. So Couchbase Lite is an embedded NoSQL database that runs in process on your device. Sync Gateway is the internet-facing cloud component that will handle the synchronization and replication, authentication issues between Couchbase Lite and Couchbase Server. Couchbase Server is the flagship product, the high-performance, highly scalable cloud storage engine, storage database. So I'm going to touch on each of these a little bit more. Couchbase Lite is full-featured, has all the features of Couchbase Server, plus some additional features handling revisions and conflict resolution. It's lightweight, about 500 kilobytes on most of the platforms, and as I say, most of the platforms, cross-platform. We support a variety of platforms. There's Apple products. They have iOS and Swift. We have Java, which runs on any J2SE device, so Android and Linux, all of that. And then there's me, .NET. So 4 different .NET runtimes, Xamarin, Unity, Mono, and Microsoft .NET are all supported. And it's secure. We support on iOS the file system encryption. And later this year, we're going to go into actual data level encryption. So you give us a set of keys, and it encrypts your data. And of course, it's all NoSQL, the flexible data model that lets you get stuff done quicker. And Sync Gateway is what sits between your public and private cloud and solves a number of authentication and replication issues and lets you securely sync data over the internet. It's a multi-master replication with automatic conflict resolution, but it's also customizable. It has authentication, and that's a pluggable authentication engine. You can use one of ours that we have, like Facebook or basic HTTP basic authentication, or you can write your own and plug it in. That's what the pluggable storage is all about. And you have data read access and write access control via the sync function, which is the heart of your sync gateway. And you can limit access at the document level, who can read, and you can decide write access at the field level. And then there's Couchbase Server, highly scalable, high performance. You can start with a few nodes and scale out as you need it, so scales outwards, horizontal scaling. High performance is always blazingly fast, always on, never any downtime, and of course, NoSQL, the flexible model that lets you get stuff done faster. All right, so why bring Couchbase Mobile to Unity? Well, that's a good question. So, build your games faster and easier. The Couchbase Mobile for Unity stores and securely syncs data across devices and platforms so you can focus on building games that your users will absolutely love. And we'll take care of all the data and networking cruft that comes along with sync, because really, I mean, who has time for that? I mean, we have time for that, obviously, because that's what we do, but who else has time for that? So, 3 points about Couchbase Mobile for Unity. You can sync game data, deliver game updates, and enable offline gaming. And these might be a little small for the people in the back, but don't worry because I'm going to show them big on the next slides right now. Syncing game data. You can manage player game data on device and sync across devices, across users, across platforms, and have fine-grained control over data read and write access. And you can deliver game updates. This is a really powerful feature. You push an asset, game asset into the server, it syncs to the user's devices, and Couchbase-like handles this event and provides an opportunity for you to react to this event. And this will happen without, not only without requiring a reinstallation, but without even interrupting gameplay. Just poof, like magic. All right, and offline gaming, of course. You know, these days it's unacceptable to, well, almost unacceptable, I don't know, it depends on your case, to have something that breaks once it goes offline. So Unity will, Couchbase Mobile will help you enable offline gaming in your game, so that even if you don't have a network connection, the data will still be saved and synced at the next available convenience of the network. All right, now, time for the explanation and the code walkthrough, or as I call it, the fun part. So the majority of this talk is going to be this. I'm going to show you how to take an existing game with no sync, just throw sync in it and have it sync a high score and replace a major game asset in real time. So, but before that, I want to show you a diagram of the asset replacement just to make it a little bit clearer what I'm actually going to do. You can see here I have a diagram set up, and at the top left, that's an image of your computer running the Unity game inside of it. And then in the middle there, that cloud icon, that's Sync Gateway. And it's backed all the way to the right by Couchbase Server normally. In my demo, just to keep things simple, I have everything running on my machine. But in a normal setup, you'd have this backed by Couchbase Server. Down here, on the bottom left, you have the admin console, which will issue commands to the middle sync gateway in order to modify it and have that data sync back down to the Unity client. All right, so I'm going to turn on display mirroring because it's going to be a little bit easier. And as an egregious oversight, I've forgotten to include this URL in the presentation. I have a different one, but here we go. Couchbase Labs GitHub repo, mini hacks. We've used this before, but this is the first time that it's included Unity. So I'm just going to follow along this tutorial, and you can Do it now if you like, or you can do it later at your own convenience. Because it's a public repo, just go out and clone it. So I have the Unity project open here. And before I get into the tutorial, there's some things at the top that I'd like to note. If you download this and open it and find the scene is blank, the scene that you want to open is here in the scenes folder, this main. So just double click that and it'll open up as you see here. So there's one item that's not in the original. This is just the end of the space shooter tutorial that most people go through when they first start with Unity. And there's one more item that I've added here that is not in the original tutorial once it's completed. And that's this item here, the asset listener. This is just a name that I gave it. It's not really any more meaning than just a name, but here, over here, it has two items on it. This is the Unity main thread scheduler that is part of Couchbase Lite, which will allow you to throw a task out there and have it queued to be run on Unity's main thread. Because if you've used Unity a lot before, you know that a lot of times it doesn't like you doing stuff off the main thread. So I figured, why not just give a quick, easy way to do that? And then there's the asset change listener. Let's not worry about this one for now, because this is actually what we're going to make. And you might notice that we make use of Task Factory and Task Scheduler. Well, that's odd. Jim, I thought that those weren't in .NET 3.5. Well, they aren't. We've added them. We've taken the Task Parallel Library backport to .NET 3.5 and included it as part of Couchbase Lite. So that now, no more messing around with coroutines. Just use Task Factory, Task Scheduler, Task Factory Start New like you would before. All right, one more thing to note is that the API compatibility level of the project must be set to .NET 2.0 and not .NET 2.0 subset. And that setting is here. Edit, project settings, player. API compatibility level, there's two choices here. This is wrong, this is right. By default, it's this, and sometimes I find that it doesn't save. And when people open the project, they say, hey, I can't build it, it gives me this exception. You'll see a type load exception. If that happens to you, this is 99% the case. Because the .NET 2.0 subset doesn't have the API that we use. For similar reasons, this won't run on the web player. The supported platforms we have are standalone, iOS, and Android. All right, so enough of that. Let's get over to the project. All right, let's zoom out for a minute here so that I stop making you dizzy. I'm going to start here in Game Controller. So let's just follow along. Number one, let's start with something simple. We're going to add these using statements to the top of the file. Wow, all right. There we go, step one, right here. Put the using statements in. Now that those are in, we have access to everything we need to make this game even better. So what's the next thing we're going to do? Let's see. First action we're going to do is when the game is finished, there's a game over method that's called. So we're going to see if the score that we have is greater than the high score that's already been saved. And if it is, we're going to set the high score to be the score and call this set new high score method. I've intentionally kept this segregated because I want to go through this piece by piece. So we're going to do this method next. Don't worry about what it does until that point. And so, oh, there's game over. Plop that right in there. All right. So step 3. You notice the call to set new high score? I bet you did. All right, and this is where we're going to go next. This method is at the bottom of the file, and we're going to implement it in 3 separate steps because it requires kind of a lot. And you notice that this is inside the call to task factory start new. Because writing out to the database requires a non-trivial amount of work, I don't want to do that on the main thread. So I'm going to put it off onto a background thread by calling task factory start new. And that's already there. So inside task factory start new, we're going to put this block of code here. And I'll go through it after I put it in. Down to the bottom. Step 3. All right. So as you saw before, or as most of you saw before in the 101, you might think this looks familiar. Manager, shared instance, get database. This is C# version. So this call to get database will get the database from the manager, which is the top-level Couchbase Lite object, which manages all the databases inside your program. This is the default one. And it's going to get or create the database namespace shooter. So if it doesn't exist, it'll create it. Next, we're going to get a document called player underbar data. And as before, when we call this get document, if the document doesn't exist, it will automatically be created. And so, next, this is, if you recall, in the grocery sink example, Jens mentioned that there was a part where he called put properties, and he mentioned that there was another way to do it that would avoid the race condition. And this is actually what he was talking about, the update method. The update method will create a new revision of the document, and then call this callback for you to let you update it. And then if you want to save it, you can return true. Or if you find something that's not quite right, you can return false, and it'll just abort the whole thing. In this case, there's not much chance of us going wrong, so we're just going to return true. And that will set the new high score into the properties on a key called high underbar score. Excellent. Now the data is saved in the local database. Now for the next step, we're going to try to push it to the remote server. If this fails, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. The data will be saved locally, and it's going to be synced up to the remote database at a later time. So we're going to add these lines into it. Right below where we added the code in step 3. So what did we do here? This, as you recall before, is the database we retrieved, and we're calling the method create push replication. This sync URL is just a constant that I've defined in another part. It's just pointing at localhost, because that's where I have my sync gateway set up. So we're going to call that, and we're going to start it. We're not going to make it continuous, because the high score only changes when the game ends. And having too many continuous replications is really a drain on your battery. And now we're going to wait for it. We're going to wait for it to stop. You see, it has a property called status, which will be active as long as it's getting data or putting data. Once it's not active anymore, that means it's either finished or it couldn't finish. This step isn't really necessary for my purpose, but I wanted to put it in anyway to remind you that we're able to use task parallel library and things like thread.sleep. If you try to use thread.sleep regularly in Unity, you'll probably get scolded by Unity. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Let's go to number 5. Now, if everything went well, you had a good connection, you synced it up, the high score is now in your local database and in your remote database, so no one will ever doubt your high score again, unless you cheated. Don't cheat. All right. So, but now we want to update it in the game's UI. it's useless if it's just there in your database, so let's go. But wait a minute. Don't just do this. You have to do this on the main thread. If you don't do this on the main thread, then Unity will rain down death and destruction on you. It will give you an exception. So, as I said before, Couchbase Lite provides a Unity main thread scheduler. This is a task factory that allows you to start tasks that will be run on the main thread in Unity. And I find this very powerful because I was always looking for a way to do this before. Coming from an iOS background, this was a very, very common pattern for us. Dispatch to a background thread, dispatch to the main thread. So I wanted to kind of have the same pattern in Unity, dispatch to the background and then dispatch back to main. Since iOS and Unity have this thing in common where they love to have things only be done on the main thread. So let's put this in. And we're going to call the update score method inside as the work to be done on the main thread. All right, let's go down to step 6. Now the whole writing of the high score is finished, but it's not really, that's only half the picture. We got to read it. What if you have a new local database that doesn't have the data from the remote yet? Now we want to go the other way. We want to take the data from the remote and put it in the local. So we're going to put this right in at the appropriate spot below score equals 0 in the start method. And there's one thing to note here. My start method doesn't return void, it returns IEnumerator. Well, that looks strange, doesn't it? I'm going to do this in a little more Unity style. When you have a start method return an IEnumerator, it automatically gets called as a coroutine. And so we can use stuff like yield to do some asynchronous stuff in the Unity style. All right, so what are we doing? You might think this looks familiar, and it should, because we're doing the same thing again. We're going the shared instance of the manager, getting the space shooter database. Except this time, we're not creating a push replication. We're creating a pull replication, which will pull from the remote to the local. Then we're going to start it and wait for it to stop. This is the more Unity style of waiting. While it's active, we're going to yield for half a second. Once that's done, we actually have data to examine. Yay! So let's try it. Oh my. All right. So what are we doing? Aha. This time, we're not getting document, we're getting existing document. What's that about? Well, in this case, if the document doesn't exist, I don't want to create it at this point. I just want to skip the logic. So we're going to get the existing document player underbar data, and if it's there, and if the user properties in it contains a high score key, we're going to take that out and convert it to an integer. And we'll have the high score from the remote data. All right, the high score system is now done. So we're going to move on to something a little more exciting. We're going to replace the mesh, the 3D model of the player ship while the game is running. That's right, not only are we not going to reinstall to update this asset, but we're not even going to pause. It's just going to fly around and then just poof, replace. So let's do that now. We're going to add some member variables here and head over to in the asset change listener class. Let's save that, because I don't want to forget to do that. Step 8. There we go. We added a pull and a push replication object to handle our pulling from the server and our pushing to the server. And we added a database to hang on to our database instance. Well, that was simple enough. So now we're going to do this old dance. We're going to add this into the start method. And just as before, my start return is an IEnumerator, which means it'll be called as a coroutine in Unity. All right, what are we doing? Once again, we're getting the database. And once again, we're creating a pull replication. But this time, we're setting continuous to be true because I want that update as soon as it's available. I want it immediately. I don't want to wait. So we're going to set it to continuous, and then we're going to start it. And then we're going to wait for it to finish its first time because I want all the new data before the game starts, just in case the ship has changed or something. So once at this point, the replication is finished. We have new data. Excellent. We're going to add this beast as step 10.
You missed a V on the copy. Var became R.
Oh, did I? Well, that's not good. Thanks. All right. So let me move this up to the middle and zoom in a little bit. So what are we doing? We're getting the existing document. I don't want to make it if it's not there. I just want to get it if it is there. Once we get here, it's not null. We have a record. Oh, good. Let's try and get the ship data. So if it has ship data, well, good. We'll get it, and we'll try to load it. If it doesn't have ship data, then this time I want to create the document my way and put in a default empty string as a ship data, which I will interpret as being default. I want to use the ship that comes with the game initially. All right, step 11. Now the database is set up to get the remote updates as they happen. But that's not enough. We have to react to them too. So over here, this was mentioned in 2 separate sessions. This is the change event that everyone keeps talking about. There's various levels that you can listen for changes on. You can listen at the database level. You can listen at the document level. You can listen at the replication level. But the thing they have in common is once this thing changes, then we'll get this callback. So in this case, once this document changes, we'll get this callback. And right here, I make a push, and I start it, because here we might have created a new document, and I want to make sure that it gets pushed up to the server. We're not waiting for it here, which is why I stored it in a member variable. Just, extra precaution to make sure it doesn't get garbage collected. All right. Now we've hooked up the change event. Now we actually have to apply the logic in the change event. This will handle and react to the changed event. And that's right down here, right below. All right, we only want to get this document change event argument has a lot of information about the change we just received. One of those things is whether or not this is the current revision. This could not be the current revision. In that case, I don't want it. I'm going to ignore it. So I'm just going to return. But if it is the current revision, I am very interested. So tell me more. We're going to try to get the ship data value. If it doesn't exist, oh dear, we better log that and bail out while we can. But if it does exist, then, oh boy, we're going to get closer and closer to the good stuff. So this is not guaranteed to be on the main thread. So I'm going to, once again, wrap this inside the Unity main thread scheduler and start the load asset coroutine, which we are going to go to now. Now we get to the really interesting part. First, I want to do some sanity checks on the document that I've just got. This is in my way, isn't it? All right, sanity check. Does the document exist? The asset name that we passed in. Does it? If it doesn't exist, bail. Is it the correct type? as Jens mentioned, there's a common convention of including a type key inside the document to identify its type, which I have done. And I have named the type of this ship model. If it doesn't have the type key or the type is not ship model, oh, bail. Now, attachments. If you remember from the PhotoDrop app and others, you can attach arbitrary data to a JSON document just so it's not taking up a whole bunch of space inside the document. So it's going to be there alongside it in the database, and it's referenced inside the JSON document. All right. I call it this way because this might be null. I don't want to get a null reference exception. So this will just get the first one inside this attachments list, or null if it doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, that's a corrupt document. Bail. All right, one final check. We want to check that this is actually a valid asset. And if it is, we want to load it. So this is just Unity stuff. Create asset bundle, create from memory. And we do this dance here because this is actually asynchronous, and we want to wait until this finishes. So it looks weird that we're returning something here, but we're really not. You know, it's just strange Unity syntax. Then get the asset bundle, and load all the assets, and yada, yada, yada. This is not specific to Couchbase. This is just how you load an asset bundle from a stream in memory. And then we're going to call load from prefab, which is more Unity-specific stuff up here. This is where all the goodness happens. So we passed in the stuff, the metadata, the keys and values that we got from the document, as well as the prefab that we loaded in the previous step. And we find the player, update its mesh filter, mesh renderer, and rate of fire. So it's going to shoot faster or slower, depending on the document. So, all right. I think I may need to speed up a little bit. Don't worry, we've only got 2 more steps. There we go. Remember from before, the game over gets called inside the game controller when the game is over, but I want to tell the asset change listener when the game is over too, so that it can do some housekeeping. So let's switch back over here and just add this one line here at the bottom of game over. Just find the asset change listener and call game over on it, which is this, step 16, our final step. All right, get existing document. I don't want to create it if it doesn't exist. And if I found it, then I want to remove the change listener that I added on before. And then if my poll is not null, then I want to stop it and null it out, because this is a continuous replication, and leaving it on will drain your battery. All right. Let me save this up here. Go into Unity and make sure we haven't broken anything. All right, it compiled all right. So back over here. We have some instructions to do here. I want to start up my sync gateway. I've included a script right in the repo that you just call, and it fires up sync gateway for you with all the correct parameters. So all I'm doing is calling sgsh start. As you can see here, empty. 0 documents in here. It's a brand new sync gateway. Next, I have another script in here called uninitialized data. This will just take, I've included an asset bundle for Unity right in the project, and this script will just take it and upload it as an attachment onto a document in sync gateway. So let's do that next. All you have to do is call this script. Okay. Let's have a look at what that did. Now we have one document. All right, what's inside of it? As you can see, we got an attachment here, and it's got the metadata on it. the length, the digest, the content type, and all that goodness, and the rate of fire for the ship and its ID. This is called alternate ship. Remember that because we're going to use it now. Well, not now, but in just 1 minute. All right. So here we go. We're starting the game. We're having all kinds of fun. This is a blast. All right. Now, when I Control-Tab out of here, it pauses the game. Luckily for me, because I don't want it to keep going and me die while I'm trying to explain things. So, next, I have another script. It's called setShip. It's a Python script. What it will do is it'll pull down the player data document, edit it, and change the ship data and put it back up in Sync Gateway. Since it's revision-based, you have to include the last revision of the document when you want to update it using the REST client. So that's why I have a Python script. It was just easier than dealing with both bash and batch files. So notice here, alternate ship, just like the one that I put in here. So with some luck, this is run on a 3-second timer. So 3, 2, 1, there we go. Booyah. Look at me, I'm killing it. It's really easy with this really rapid rate of fire. So I think the developer must have made a mistake. Something's wrong with this. Better cancel that. Better change it back to the default. Oh man. Oh dear. Well, there's nothing left to do but die. So, look right up here. High score has been updated. Gonna reload these documents here. 2 documents, hurrah. Player data right up here, you can see. The high score has been safely saved in Sync Gateway, so no one will ever doubt you. All right, that's the end of the demo. And I'd like to switch back now to the presentation where I have just a few minute details. I said before, my egregious error was not including the mini-hack URL in here, but I have included the source of the completed project here. So what I just did now, this is where you can get it, and I encourage you to do so. So thank you all for listening to all that, and I'm ready for some questions. Yes?
Yeah, let's say you had a game like that and you were reporting high scores.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of high scores. Is there a way, how would you control not getting overwhelmed by high scores if you only wanted the top 30 high scores to be synced?
Well, in this particular example, I wasn't thinking of storing all the high scores. I was just thinking of storing the high score for that player. But for example, if you wanted to store the global high scores, you could create a view and have the view emit the high scores, which will sort them, and then just limit them to 30, and then you can pull those down and have the top 30 high scores. That's more the NoSQL way to do it. So create the view, which will emit and sort your stuff based on the high score as the key, and then you can just say limit 30. You have an option to limit it that way.
Would it still sync the high score documents though?
Yes, all of the documents would be synced, and I don't think it will be particularly overwhelming with this amount of text, but that's something you do have to cross that bridge when you get to it. All right. You have one question? All right.
I understand because high score use case, but I'm interested in the more complex one. So, for example, MMORPG, so massive multiplayer
Yeah.
RPG, something like that.
Well, he might be a little bit biased to ask me. I think Couchbase Mobile can be applied to any use case. The question was, can it be applied to MMORPGs? And I don't know, I guess the answer really depends on what exactly you're doing. I mean, just saying MMORPG is a little bit vague. You really have to drill down and analyze what you're doing and what you want to sync and what you want to send. So the unfortunate answer is it depends. All right, well, if anyone else has any other questions, I'll be hanging around here and I'll be at the join event tonight. So thanks everyone for your time.